Hardly a day, let alone a week, goes by without the media reporting someone in or connected to the public sector saying that their service is in crisis, and without more money, it won't be able to deliver. In recent weeks, we've seen it with schools, the NHS in general and A&E in particular, social care, local authorities and prisons, just for a start.
We're going to need capital investment. In real terms, NHS spending per person in England is going to go down. I would say we were robbing Paul to pay Paul.
Is the prison system in a crisis? We're in a very difficult situation.
Schools are really struggling and we are in desperate need of additional funding.
There are just not enough GPs, there is not enough resource, there are not enough practice nurses. The whole system is stretched so thin.
The reality seems to be that after 7 years of cuts and public sector austerity, we are getting down to the bone. So what are the choices? Well, either we'll have to pay more taxes, but that's highly unlikely. Just look at the U-turn this week over the proposed increase in national insurance. Or we will all have to accept that the state can't provide the services we aspire to. If that's true, politicians, particularly those in power, have to come clean about it. And journalists have to stop reporting every warning about cuts in public services as a great surprise likely to lead to the end of the world as we know it.
It's a great week to be talking about this, isn't it? With that U-turn, that screeching, embarrassing U-turn on NICs, on national insurance. I think I come at this from a point of view of thinking that what all these stories about cuts and austerity and all these services in crisis, what it tells us is that spending and politics are both about choices, and we could spend more money despite the fact that there is a debt of 1.7 trillion and rising, and the fact that we are due to borrow something like 51 billion in this budget, in this Parliament.
Wow.
And that, we've abandoned all hopes of balancing the books in the lifetime of the next two Parliaments. What I think is, and this is going to sound very lefty, is I genuinely think that we've got to pay more tax.
I'm with you.
And what we saw on yesterday was the fact that we wrote a manifesto. The Tories presented a manifesto in 2015 which stupidly committed the government, which could be in power for another 8 years or so, to not raising taxes. What a foolish commitment that was. And Philip Hammond should have ridden this one out and said, yes, we put this in the manifesto, but as, the landscape has changed, all our services are suffering, everyone's got to bite the bullet, we probably got to unify the tax system so it's not just NICs and income tax, we've got to roll it all together and everyone's got to step up.
Yeah.
I agree, but you see, what is interesting about what's happening this week, is where was the Labour Party? The Labour Party was nowhere. There is no opposition.
No.
It was a bunch of backbench MPs who have changed a policy which actually was quite fair. But that's not my wider point is this. Look, they are not going to increase taxes in this Parliament.
They have to.
They just
have
to.
to.
But they're not going to. And
good.
Somehow it seems to me that there's a public relations industry now. There are now more journalists working in public relations than there are actually working as proper journalists. And there's an industry that produces reports overnight, so they hit all the morning bulletins and all the morning papers to say, look, there's another big crisis. And no one asks the question, OK, so if that's what you're saying, this needs more money, where would you take it from?
Come from?
Yeah.
Where would you
I've
take
got the
it from?
answer. I've got
the
a really
$51 billion.
No, I've got a really simple answer. I think I always listen to you saying how much more tax you think that we should be paying. So you're obviously keen, and you two have just said that you agree that you'd pay more tax. Let's set up a voluntary tax code. People like you three that want to pay more tax, that feel able to pay more tax.
Very clever,
You can voluntarily pay more tax.
Well, I'd like to volunteer for you to pay more tax.
No, let me tell you
Why
what
wouldn't you pay more tax, Michelle?
I will not pay a penny more
You're never going to get old or sick, are you?
Let me explain, until I have been reassured that the tax that I currently pay is being effectively spent.
How are you reassured?
Well, you would get qualified people to do a proper root and branch review of taxation that's received, where it's been spent, looking at wastage, looking at opportunities to make sure it's
I've heard this
made
before,
efficient.
Michelle. It's not
I'm
because
stuck
we've got inefficient public services, that we've got public services in crisis. It's because they don't have any money.
Yes, but spend the money you've got properly first before you... So, by the way, I'm not against paying more tax if it's needed, but only if I'm convinced that it's needed. And just throwing money around all over the place and being inefficient with the money doesn't convince me.
We've got an ageing population. What do we do with that?
If that's the position and that's what you want, then when all these people stand up and different organisations come out and say, we've got to have more money, you've got to stand up and say, there is no more money.
But Greg, we've always heard there isn't. We've got to grab here. We've always heard there's no more money. Look at this clip from Kinnock and Thatcher in 1990.
Which of the reforms are going to provide books in libraries where there are no books? Are going to provide equipment in laboratories where there's no equipment? Which of the reforms are going to raise the morale of the teaching force? Stop the buildings crumbling?
More money is being spent per pupil in real terms than ever before. There are more teachers in proportion to children than ever before.
You see, it was ever this. There's never any money. But I think I don't object to people with money lots of money pay more tax. But I'm not entirely
voluntarily.
Sure. Well, no, even not voluntarily. Even not voluntarily. But I'm not sure that just throwing money at problems is the solution. I think there are lots of our public services in this country need totally reorganised and restructuring. And just chucking money at the NHS, chucking money at the police, chucking money at schools isn't the answer, because people are resistant to change, and we see it in every area. Look at when Ian Duncan Smith tried to change welfare, when Theresa May tried to cut budgets of the cops.
But then surely what Greg is saying is right. Then you need our politicians to actually just be honest.
No, but the politicians aren't, because they use. If somebody says, I'm going to reorganise the cops, the opposition party will start screaming about it.
But there is no opposition at the moment.
Well, but they will start screaming about it, and they'll start saying this is not right. And what we have to do, and it is about root and branch, is we've got to change the way our public services work.
We have had 8 years where, I was involved as a chairman of one small public sector organisation where I think we took out 40% over that time. There have been massive cuts in lots of public sector organisations. The tragedy is it hasn't made any difference. The tragedy is that when the coalition government came in and said, look, what we're going to do is balance the books in 5 years, and then it became 10 years. Yeah. And now it's 15 years. And does anybody believe they're going to balance them in 15 years?
No.
The truth is you need growth. You don't need, and that's why, you need tax. And now I personally think I have no problem. Look, it's time we all paid some more tax. And those of us who are quite well off.
But as Michelle says, if you're spending it in the right way, that's fine. You know, when the NHS started, I think the budget was like 480 million. Now it's 160
million. You've been a columnist and a journalist most of your life.
Yes.
I don't like to sell this. I don't think you're able to judge whether it's being spent properly. Journalists are the last people. Journalists are the last people.
Well, that's a stupid thing to say, because a journalist is a person. I'm paying tax. All journalists pay tax. Everyone around this table pays tax.
But they don't know about running anything, because they've never run anything. They just sit, and columnists are even worse because they just sit and talk about things.
You can insult me all you like, but journalists pay tax, and it's stupid to say.
But don't you also think the other thing that's quite sort of concerning is the relationship between Theresa May and Philip Hammond? I don't know if that because I am no fan of Cameron and Osborne, but they had a really good relationship that was solid to carry us through tough times. I don't know if that relationship, the one we've got now, is. I'm quite nervous about those two being the ones to lead us through all of this.
What I found interesting was that he took the increase, what he was going to do, to the cabinet. And nobody said, hang on, doesn't this break our manifesto commitment?
Yeah, and it took a BBC journalist, Laura Pinsberg, to notice that it broke. But also, wait a minute. Where is Philip Hammond going to find the £2 billion that he was going to spend on social care, the crisis in social care, which is how we look after our elderly. Who are a growing and needy block? Yeah. Where's he going to find it now? The back of the sofa, or some wasteful programme of, I don't know what, from, you're
you called it embarrassing. I don't think it was embarrassing to do that U-turn. I think actually making a poor decision, which I do think it was a poor decision. No, I think it was a poor decision.
It was a good decision. It just contradicted a manifesto pledge. That's why he abandoned it. He didn't say this was wrong. He said we broke our promise. That's why we're saying.
I think it was a poor decision, and the fact that he actually did that U-turn, I respect him for doing that. To have the balls to actually stand up and go, I got this wrong.
Do you think
I'm
that was
changing
his
it.
choice?
Well, probably not, but I
It
respect
was
him for
Tory
following through.
backbenchers.